Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet. This review covers how to build the Gold Knight of Nice. It's a 1/8 scale kit, Revell model kit number 85-6525, originally released in 1957. This 2011 reissue is still available at online auctions and retailers. The model consists of about 84 light gray plastic parts. There are no decals, and easy to follow instructions are provided that lead you through 8 different assembly process steps. The model is recommended for intermediate skill level builders, at least age 10 and older, but that might be a little light considering some of the detailing required to really finish off this model. It represents the typical armor of the era called Gothic armor, and it was worn from the mid-1400s to the early 1500s. Now, this type of armor was typically used both for battle and for jousting. And when you're done, it'll be approximately 11.5 inches in length. Are the contents of this kit, and as you can see, this is my version of the open box review. Only my version will take about 10 seconds. But like others, just talking about the pieces won't help you build the kit, so we're going to show you how to do that. For the most part, we'll be using Model Master's liquid cement and sometimes super glue for strength, but we'll also want you to pay attention to the manufacturer's safety and use guidelines for any of the products that you see or hear mentioned in the review. First thing to do for the kit is to wash all the parts in some warm soapy water using a little mild soap detergent, and then let them air dry. Following that, identify all the parts and cut them off of the sprues, and then you can begin the process of cleaning up any mold flash with a hobby knife or anything else that needs to be fixed prior to assembly. Back in the 50s, there was absolutely no afterthought to where you would locate the copyright script on your models. So, as this photo shows, there is a copyright mark on the right inner back leg that has to be removed. So, scrape off the raised letters and sand it off smooth with some medium sandpaper, and then surface it out, nicely with some putty of your choice. Now the body of the horse was then assembled in accordance with the kit's instructions. As you can see here, the torso of the horse has a large gap that will not close, even though I used some rubber bands to clamp it while the glue was setting. And there are seams located in a number of areas that will need to be smoothed and puttied and then refinished so that you get a good smooth looking finish for your model. For the larger gaps, I cut some sheet styrene and then I just kind of wedged it into those gaps and used a little super glue to glue it into place there. And then I trimmed it off later to take up some of the space in those gaps. After the styrene strips were trimmed off and flushed to the surface, I sanded it, and then the entire area was coated with a product called Mr. Surfacer, but you can use any mixture or light putty that you need to cover this up so that you can get a good smooth finish. It's going to take a significant amount of work to get this to look nice, but that's really the only way that you can approach this model with any degree of a nice looking surface finish. And here's the model of the horse prior to paint. I used a Krylon product and a color called boot brown, and I gave the horse body a couple of light even coats. Now this was allowed to dry for a couple of days before moving on. I then airbrushed a little bit of Model Master's flat white paint onto the lower portion of the legs before painting the hooves and the tail. I also airbrushed a patch on the top of his forehead there and snout, and gave him a little personality. Now the rest of the model is painted with some shades of darker browns through an airbrush into the crevices, and then a little bit lighter browns on the highlighted area, the tops of the muscular features. And of course the tail was a dark brown, and some light coats into the crevices there for definition. Now finally, I painted the entire body with a coat of Tester's Dull Coat paint. And you won't have to paint the horse's mane because this gets completely hidden by the armor. With the body of the horse painted, I set that aside so that it could dry completely. And I took a look at the saddle, and I ran into some pin marks on the saddle's backrest, and I filled those with a little bit of super glue filler. You can use a putty there, but you're going to want to clean that up so that it's not visible. I painted the saddle parts with a Rust-Oleum gold spray paint, and once I had the saddle parts painted and dried, I assembled them and attached them to the horse as you see here. And I painted the armor using, as I mentioned, the same gold spray paint. And once that was dry, the chainmail areas got some flat black in them. And then this was followed up by dry brushing over the top with some Model Masters steel silver. Once I had the armor plates painted and dried, I attached them to the horse. And the left front body armor didn't fit well. That's part 5L, and it resulted in not sitting flush against the left side armor plate, part 10L. So the end result was a large gap between the two parts there. And I think I tried some dry fitting earlier and didn't notice it, but that might be an area where you'd want to take a little extra time to make sure that the parts fit together well. The hind quarter armor, though, went on very well with no problems. It fit and mated up well with the rest of the saddle and the armor blankets there. With the horse's armor finished, it's time to work on putting together the knight. And here you can see the assembled breastplate and back plate that are the first to go together. Next, we can assemble the two halves of the knight's head and mount that. I mounted that to a small block of wood for painting and finishing. And then mounting it to the wood makes it just easier to get around and at the different angles that you need. It keeps your fingerprints off of the figure. Use some slow drying artist oils to paint the face, and this type of paint is perfect for putting on skin tones, but they take several days to dry, and that leaves plenty of time to manipulate or blend the colors and make sure that you've got the look just right. They're more forgiving than enamels or acrylic paints if you happen to make a mistake. Because of the slow drying time, you have plenty of time to wipe the paint off and start over if you don't like the way it's looking. After I had finished up the head, I started working on the rest of the body, and here I've assembled the arms and legs and attached them to the torso, once again using some of that Rust-Oleum gold spray paint to paint the armor. And once it was dried, I painted the chainmail areas flat black, and this was again followed up by some dry brushing the raised areas with some Model Masters steel silver. I then went ahead and attached the smaller armor accessories, the sword and the head, into place. Once I had finished with the knight, I'd placed him on the horse as a dry fit, and at this point, when I've sized up the stirrups, the plastic straps were about a 1/4 inch too short. I just made my own straps using some masking tape and some scrap styrene so that it was at least long enough to fit over the foot. And finally, the last steps are to simply attach the helmet to the head and the bit and the reins to the horse, and that completes the construction of the model. Well, there you have it. In the end, the Golden Knight of Nice is a fun kit to build, but you should be prepared to spend considerable amount of time finishing the horse, as the large gaps and seams will need to be filled and properly addressed to make this a nice looking model. There's also that ill-fitting armor in front that you may want to test fit a little bit further, And you should be prepared to discard the kit's stirrup straps because they're just not long enough, and make your own. But overall, with the extra work and a little bit of detailing, this kit is perfect for any shelf display and a nice break for those who do automotive or transportation subjects. So if I were you, I'd find one and put it on my shelf. Well, we hope you liked this premium step-by-step model kit review. And so that you don't miss any more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, or you can find us on Facebook and at our website, rideonreplicas.com. Thanks!